Alright, so I got a lot done today. This is the third and final episode of the straight axle installment and steering and all that fun stuff that goes with it. Now, a lot goes on in this video today because a lot went on. A lot goes into this. And I filmed pretty much all of it. You know, some of the things that I had to do double of, I only filmed me doing the one side rather than the other side. Some stuff I film all of it, but I didn't want to bore everybody, to death. But let me just say this before we get too far into it. Don't do what I'm doing. If anyone is doing this, if anyone's building one of these, I'm not necessarily right. Like, as you're seeing this video, as it came out, I am not even sure if this is done correctly. I'm sure people will come out of the woodwork eventually and tell me that it's not, but I wanted to tack these in, so that's what, obviously, I'm starting the video, and I just wanted to tack them in and see if, everything went well with the steering. And after tacking them, it did. But I have zero experience with this stuff, guys. As I've said a million times, I say it in almost every video, I have zero knowledge of this. I look at a picture and I try to, copy what I see on the picture. I try to get it as close to what I can, and using common sense and my really limited welding skills, I make do with what I have and, with the knowledge that I have, which isn't a lot. I ask a lot of questions to people who do know about cars, and I try to just go off of what they say. But as far as this project goes, this is, one of the scariest things I've ever done. I really anticipated, putting a rear end in is one thing in a car, but a straight axle, even a lot of mechanics and fabricators in my area, they don't know how to put one of these in because they've never done it. This is old school. This is what they did back in the 50s and 60s. This isn't, most people would not want a straight axle front end in their car. They would. So, don't go by what I do or what I say. This is all experimental. This is just what I'm doing. So after, checking the measurements 100 times, I went back and I burnt it in. It was scary. This kit was over $1,000. So to screw it up, you only get one shot at it. I could grind all this off and redo it, but for God's sakes, I don't want to have to do that. So I really made sure my measurements were accurate, and my crappy weld job, I know I'm gonna hear it from at least somebody. Yeah, my welds aren't that great, but they're not pretty, but they are strong, and I make sure of it. I make sure that it's burnt in there very well. My welder is turned up to its max, and it's burnt in there for sure. Because stuff like this, I'm building a car from scratch basically. It's got to be safe, and this is probably the most important thing that should be safe is, your axles and your wheels and your steering. If that stuff's not all tied in right, then you can't lose your steering going down the road 60 miles per hour. And you don't want your axle to, fall off when you hit a pothole going down the road 60 miles an hour either, especially in this death trap. But I tacked it in. I even did it a little better than that before I painted it. I went back over it, but I didn't want to just show myself welding for a half hour on this video. But I burnt both sides in of both perches very well. I just paint it right away. Like, that's probably not going to be the final product, but I just paint it so it doesn't rust after I grind it down, because even if you let it go a couple days, that little bit of rust that gets in the cracks and everything, that'll spread like a cancer. So you just want to get paint down in there. Now this is almost laughable, but it works. If you I put these 2 planks in front of my tires, and when they pull up tight with the tape measure, you can get an accurate alignment reading to see if your wheels are the same measurement in the front and the back, and then you can make your adjustments on your steering rods. And that's exactly what I did. Now I already had this tied in yesterday from the last video. I had that figured out, but I just wanted to double check, which even after burning the perches in, you can still set your alignment. Cars are always going to need a line, they go out of alignment. So I took the old shocks off of the old front end. These things are junk. I'm just kind of using them as a basis to where to weld. I have to weld shock mounts, and I've never done that before either. I've never done any of this. I'll say it 1,000 times, and I'm basing it off of a picture that I saw in Common Sense, like I said. Now the shock mount bolts that came in the kit, they are 1 1/4 inch wide from washer to washer, so that's how far apart I'm going to put the shock mounts, on the bottom, which you'll see later. But what I'm doing right now is wiping these down with miracle spirits, acetone, mineral spirits, to get all the oil and the fingerprints off it before I paint them. Even though I'm not using these for good, I still just want to spray them black, because why not? Why not make it all look nice and fresh in there? These are 10-inch shocks. I am going to order 6-inch shocks that go to 12-inch capacity. These go to 14-inch capacity, and you'll see why shortly. But yeah, this is a very primitive way of doing things, but it works. So I don't have the luxury of having a spray booth. Maybe I could build one, but I don't think I'm going to be doing this for a living. So a lot of the tools that I accumulate, I may, I'll use them, but there's certain things I won't buy, because I just know that this is kind of like a lot of the stuff I'm doing is a one-time deal. It's not something I'm going to be doing every day, so I'm not going to buy a bunch of expensive paint equipment or anything like that. Everyone tells me, like, buy a socket set, man. Just buy like a real nice socket set. And it's like, I've been able to do everything so far with my toolbox and my random Craftsman sockets and socket wrenches or ratchets. I have everything I need for the most part. And if there is something that I need to use for like a one-time deal, I can borrow it off somebody. But I say all this now, and I'll probably end up doing this a lot more. I feel like I'll probably build another car after this. The more I do it, the more I really enjoy it. I used to be really intimidated by a lot of things, but just diving in and doing it feels really good, and it's really not that hard. But that, who knows if I'm doing it right. So yeah, there's the hardware, and I wanted to. As you can see, that hole there, there's these holes that are already there perfectly for me, and I don't think that they'll be in the way of the oil pan for the engine. So what better way, like there was only one way to get to that hole, and I had to use my brain. I sat and thought about it for about a half an hour, and I was going to drill the whole way through the frame and buy longer bolts, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to cut this corner here, and I'm going to like lift it up like a flap and get in there with a wrench and get that nut in there, and just put that shock mount bolt right in that hole, and it's almost adjustable if I ever want to move it. But it's not adjustable after you see what I do, obviously, because I burn it in there after I bolt it in nice and tight. But that's not to say that I can always grind them welds off. I just tack it in. I don't do like a crazy job on it. This was actually, kind of time consuming because I didn't want to cut out material. I'm using a grinding wheel, so I was just trying to get down to the crease, and it's easier said than done. I thought it was going to be a easier job, or not an easier job, but a quicker job than what it was. All this is easy, I guess I'll throw that in there too. Everything I've done on this car so far has been easy. It's not like it's fun. It's not like I wake up in the morning like, oh god, I gotta go work on the car. Like, I can't wait to get up and work on the car. Like, it's all I think about. It's all I research, at night after I'm done editing these stupid videos. I'm researching and I'm looking at pictures and I'm reading forums, watching videos on YouTube. I'm constantly trying to learn more about what I can do. I really regret, I dabbled with, some V8 engines. I had some cool cars growing up. I had a couple Cadillacs. I had a Trans Am. I had a Camaro. I had a Grand Prix. And so, like, I messed with some V8s, but, like, I never did anything like this at all. So just a tip there, you put that nut in there on a, so you don't lose it, put it on some vice grips, and you put it in at an angle so you can hold it flush to the hole. And that's, just to get it started. And then once you get it started, you can get a wrench in there and you can really wrench it down. And that worked out good. Like, I'm not a clever person by any means, but that was just a good way to do it. And I didn't have to drill any holes or anything, and they're perfectly aligned because those are on the same exact place on both sides. I didn't have to measure anything. It was just right there. And then it was just kind of, I shut the door back up then, or pound them back down and weld them back together, as you'll see momentarily. But don't worry, I don't show the whole process on this one. I just show a little bit of the cutting out. But this one was kind of more of a pain in the ass than the other side was. I had a harder time getting this one. It just didn't want to give up. Even though I got to the crease, it was like melted in there. I mean, it's been that way for 73 years, so without being compromised. You'd think I'd learned my lesson from the last time I welded in a tank top, but I didn't. I welded in a t-shirt today, which wasn't nearly as bad. I didn't get burnt this time, but it was 93 degrees again, so I couldn't see wearing a hoodie. So this is after they're tightened down and everything, and I kind of put the flaps back down, and I just tacked them in there. I didn't get too crazy with it, but I did put about 6 or 7 little tack welds on there, and that's just enough to really hold it in there tight. I didn't show the process of like sanding around to get the paint off the frame and to get good welds, like that's all little stuff that I left out, but that's all self-explanatory. If you're going to do this, you need to have a clean area to weld onto. If you have paint and rust, it's not going to be as smooth. Just moving it to the other side so that I can get in there. Even though this is a pretty open area, it was still kind of a pain to get to some of these areas with the machine. Quick job here on the other side. I feel like this area, I mean, it's literally right above the axle, so I feel like it was a good choice to put them here, and it just so happened that those holes were there. I could have, fabricated some mounts. I thought about 20 different ways to do it, but I'm glad I went with this way, and you'll see why. My welds are so hideous. I know I say that every time, but like, you'd think I'd be getting a little better at it. If I really took my time and tried to make them real nice, I probably could do a better job. But my theory is, for right now, I'm not going for looks. I'm going for structural integrity. Like, I just like to burn it in there. As ugly as it is, I like to just make sure it's in there, even if it's overkill. I don't like to take chances because I'm new at this. I'm not used to like trusting my welds and everything, and I haven't really tested all my welds all that much. So like, I like to, everyone that sees my welds are like, wow, that was kind of overkill, like you really, but I'm sorry, it's just kind of the way I do it for now anyway. I'm sure by my third car I'll have it down a lot better. And like I said, I have so many other projects to do after this. I still have the 58 that I'm working on, and I still haven't touched the 91 Chevy OBS that's coming up next summer, or this summer coming up. Spring. I don't know. Whenever I get to it, I don't want to promise anything. But that's going to be a big project, and it's going to be really fun. So I marked 4 inches from the perch on each side. That's what that white chalk line is there, and or soap line. And I just did that on both, and I really eyeballed it, and used my magnets to make it 90 degrees. And I don't know. You'll have to see when it's done, but they're spaced apart perfectly, and I feel like they're for eyeballing it, they are pretty good. And like I said, I spaced these apart, which you'll see in a little bit. I spaced them apart the same distance as the top shock mount bolts, which from washer to washer was 1.25 inches. I made these about 1/8 of an inch bigger, like more of a space, because you never know if you're going to go with I don't know anything about, like, if I get different shocks, I don't know if they'll be wider. And if I get brand new bushings, it might be a little wider, so I don't want them to like not fit in there, because that will defeat the entire purpose of what I'm doing. But I think that it'll work out just fine. But yeah, I spent, all in all, with the whole front end, not counting today's work, from the time I put the leaf springs on and everything, I think I spent 1.5 hours out there the day I did the leaf springs. And doing the steering and doing this episode, all 3 episodes all together, the time spent in the garage is probably like maybe 10 hours. So, for not ever doing this before and not knowing what I'm doing at all other than watching videos and pictures, 10 hours isn't that bad, and I'm not gonna lie, I'll tell you a little secret. I was considering, because I have so many vehicles, I was considering actually giving away my truck for somebody to actually do this for me. So here it is, you know, with my poopy looking weld job, but they're strong. You know, before I put the shocks in there, I actually put the bolt through and tightened it down real good, and they're not budging. I mean, they're in there so good, and I'm pretty happy with it, and they're perfectly symmetrical, and I think that'll work just fine. It shouldn't be in the way of anything, you know, as far as I know. When I drop the engine in, we'll see. I have to have you know, my guy Rick come over and really look at it, and he'll know just by looking. But if I have to move them, I will, but I'm really hoping I don't have to. That's a painted you know, finished product, and I just love the way all this looks. Not gonna lie, you know, I'm not a prideful person or anything like that, but you know, I'm pretty proud of myself for just going for this and doing it. Whether it's right or wrong, you know, I'm gonna have a professional look at it before I drive it and everything. But if I did pull it off and it works, I'm pretty proud of myself for not, you know, trying to get someone to do it for me and just coming out here and knocking it out, because it wasn't hard. If it is done right, it really wasn't hard, and I enjoyed every second of it. But yeah, this wraps up, you know, the 3-episode process. Actually, it's more like 4, because I had an episode of me putting together this straight axle kit, which is still not together fully. Like, I still have to take it apart and grease everything up and do all that, but this wraps up the 3rd episode in a row of me working on this, and I am just, you know, really stoked that it turned out the way it did. And now I gotta figure out when to drop this engine in and get a transmission. So stay tuned, because that's coming next. Thanks for watching.